The mining colony of Vorkaznine was not a place for the living. It was a prison buried in rock and fire, where the suns never rose, and the air always smelled of metal, sweat, and blood. Millions of humans lived there, but none were truly alive. They worked the deep tunnels of the Car Empire, digging for dark matter crystals that powered the alien war fleets. No one ever escaped. No one ever resisted, till one man did. It was morning, or what passed for morning, in the endless dark. The ground trembled as the alarms screamed to life. Rows of tired, hollow-eyed humans stumbled out of the sleeping chambers, dragging their heavy feet and wearing the same gray uniforms that never felt clean. Metal collars around their necks buzzed with electric warnings. The car guards watched them from towers above tall, reptilian creatures with bone armor and plasma whips. A loud voice thundered from the sky, blasting through hidden speakers in every direction. All humans, line up, kneel for inspection. No one dared to speak. No one even blinked. It was routine. Every day started with a kneeling ceremony, proof of obedience. It kept the car calm, kept the humans in chains. Except today, the guards walked through. The rows of kneeling humans. One of them stopped, and his eyes narrowed behind his helmet. He turned slowly and pointed at something. No, someone. A man was standing. He wasn't young or strong. His uniform was ripped and stained. His skin was rough and scarred. His hands were bruised and his face was unreadable. But he was standing straight. Still, his head was held high, and his eyes stared forward, not at the guards, but past them like he was seeing something they couldn't. Unit 1719. The guard shouted, "Kneel, now." The man didn't move. Around him, humans held their breath, kneeling, shaking, watching. No one had ever done this before. People had spoken out before foolish ones. They had cried, begged, even screamed. But this man said nothing. No cry, no words, just silence. Just standing, the guard hissed and lifted his plasma whip. Kneel or die. The man's eyes met. His dot, and still he stood. The whip cracked through the air and struck him in the chest. He fell to his knees, but not because he bowed. It was the force. Blood dripped from the wound, but the man pushed himself up again. His hands shook, his legs wobbled, but slowly, painfully, he stood again. The guards weren't prepared for that. Another whip lashed out, another and another. But the man kept getting up. Every time he fell, he stood again. His uniform was torn, his back was scorched, but he never spoke, never bowed, never gave them what they wanted. Then, something unexpected happened. A small drone. One of the old maintenance units that hovered along the high ledges had been watching. Its eye blinked red as it zoomed in. It had no orders to record, but something in its broken code sparked curiosity, began to film the standing man, the silence, the lashes, the blood, and the stare that burned through bone. Later that day, when the man was dragged away unconscious, the drone disappeared into a maintenance duct. Deep in the belly of the station, it uploaded the footage to the old net, the forgotten parts of the galaxy's digital veins, a place filled with viruses, dead code, and ghosts. But the video didn't die. It traveled, and it was seen. On the slave. Colony of Trellix 4. A child secretly watched the video on a hacked screen. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. "Mother?" she whispered. He didn't kneel. On a pirate ship orbiting Epsilon Verge, an old human captain slammed his drink on the table. "They're lying." "That's real?" he asked his crew. The image paused, bloodied, broken, but standing. And on the Car High Command Station, located at the core of the Empire, a war advisor stormed into the throne room. "Your Excellency," he said, bowing low, "there's been an incident. Human slave refused to kneel during a ceremonial inspection. Footage leaked. It's spreading." The High Commander of the Car Empire, Lord Vaskrol, narrowed his dark eyes. "A slave?" he said slowly. One human dares to defy me? Kill him," he tried, the advisor said nervously. He's still alive. The guards left him for dead, but the workers pulled him into the tunnels. He vanished, and now the footage has been viewed by over 20 million systems. Entire planets are rioting. The Emperor rose from his black marble throne. Then burn them, he said coldly. Burn. Every world where the flames have spread. Back on Vorkasny, the tunnels were silent. Joren, that was his name. No one had spoken it in years. Lay inside a hidden vent chamber, patched up by trembling hands. Old men and women surrounded him. A few younger ones watched from the shadows, their eyes wide, their hearts racing. They didn't speak, afraid of breaking the strange silence around him. He opened his eyes and sat up. The others stepped back. Joren looked at his wounds. He touched the blood on his chest. He moved his fingers slowly, testing his strength. Then he looked at the people around him, broken humans with no hope, no future. He didn't speak, but something shifted in the air. A young man finally stepped forward. "Why didn't you kneel?" he asked. Joren stared at him. And then, just once, he shook his head. No. That simple movement, the smallest rebellion, sent chills down everyone's spine. Another man whispered, "You're the one from the video." Joren didn't answer. "You started something," the woman said. "The guards are going mad. Whole sectors are rising. It's all because of you." But Joren didn't respond. He didn't have to. He had already said everything he needed without saying a word. Far above them, in orbit, a new car battleship arrived. Its orders were simple. Erase the colony. Kill anyone involved. Bury the moment forever. But it was too late, because by the time the car fleet prepared to strike, the stars had already started to burn, and one human was already gone, vanished, but not forgotten. He had stood, and that was enough. The sky above Vorkasny turned dark, not because of nightfall, but because of what was coming. Giant car warships blocked the light, their weapons fully armed. Their mission was clear: erase the colony, kill the man who stood. Silence the spark before it became a fire. But Joren was already gone. He had disappeared into the tunnels, led by humans who no longer feared death. Something had changed in them, something deep and powerful. Not just anger, not just pain, something stronger. Hope. In a hidden chamber deep underground, voices echoed. "He was nothing," one man said. "Just another slave." "No," a woman answered. "He stood." They looked at the screen. The video of Joren standing was everywhere now. On stolen devices, on illegal satellites, on pirate radios. It had traveled to the deep parts of the galaxy. People couldn't stop watching it. A child on Trellix 4 replayed it again and again, whispering he didn't kneel. A smuggler on Orden's station paused his cargo run to download it. Even alien races under car rules started sharing the footage, the image of one human standing against his masters. It burned into their minds like a brand. The car noticed, and they panicked. Inside the throne chamber of Lord Vaskrol, the mood was rage. "How can one man cause this much trouble?" he roared. "He's not a general, not a soldier. A miner." His advisor bowed deeply. "That miner's image has been seen in over 47 million systems. There are riots on 4 slave worlds. Even car citizens are asking questions." "Burn them," Vaskrol said again. "Burn them all." But his words came too late. On the slave planet Julanine, workers refused to mine. They dropped their tools and stood in silence on Gravian orbit. A human prisoner broke her own chains and shouted one word into the prison intercom: "Stand." The guards couldn't stop them all. A storm was coming, far away from the chaos. A small resistance ship hovered in the shadows of a dead moon. Inside, in a cold and dusty medical bay, Joren lay on a metal table. His wounds were bad, burns across his back, cracked ribs, bruised lungs, but he was alive. A group of rebels humans, few exiled aliens, and even a friendly AI stood around him. They didn't know what to do. "He's the one from the video," said Rixa, a rebel pilot with sharp eyes. "He's the reason we have a chance now." "But he's not a leader," said Tarn, a human engineer. "He hasn't even spoken." "He doesn't need to," Rixa replied. His silence said enough. They argued for hours. Should they use him as a symbol? Should they keep him hidden? Should they let him choose? Joren remained silent, even as he healed. He watched. He listened. But he didn't speak. His silence felt heavy, like it carried more meaning than words ever could. That silence made others stronger. Meanwhile, the car prepared for war. On Colony, Eric's 2, General Zarek, the hunter of uprisings, arrived with a fleet of death ships. His mission, destroy any world spreading the Defiant human video. He landed in full armor, claws sharp, eyes glowing with fury. His first command, bring me the leaders, bring me the weak. Let them kneel before me. But the prisoners didn't. Kneel. They stood, hundreds of them, silent, defiant. Zarek's claws trembled. For the first time in decades, he felt something strange. Fear, back on the rebel ship. Rixa entered Joren's chamber. He was sitting now, legs over the side of the table, eyes staring through the wall like he could see the stars. We need you, she said. They need you. He turned his head toward her. They're rising, she continued. Whole systems. People are standing just because they saw you do it. Joren didn't answer. She stepped closer. We're ready to fight. But we need a reason. We need a symbol. He looked down at his hands, bruised, shaking, hands of a worker, not a warrior. Still, something in his eyes burned like fire. We're heading to the Corn Ring, she said. A prison ship holding over 10,000 human captives. The Car are planning a public kneeling broadcast, a full surrender ceremony. They want to scare the galaxy back into silence. Joren's eyes narrowed. Rixa placed a small device in his hand. It's a key, she said, to open their collars. Joren didn't move. But later that night, when the rebels checked the room again, he was gone. The Corn Ring floated near a red dwarf star. Inside, the slaves were lined up. Cameras floated overhead. Guards shouted commands. On your knees. Some began to obey. Then a door exploded. A figure stepped through the smoke. Burned. Uniform. Blood-stained skin. No weapons. Just fire in his eyes. Gasps rippled through the prisoners. Is that? He's real. Joren walked forward, straight toward the guards. They aimed their guns. He didn't stop. Whip cracked. He kept walking. He reached the first line of slaves and dropped the small device click. Their collars fell off. The guards screamed. The prisoners rose. The fire in their eyes matched his. No one knelt, and all across the galaxy, from shadow networks to alien resistance hubs, the broadcast of the event went live. One human had stood. Now millions were rising. And the stars were catching fire. The high command chamber on the planet Vorthal Prime had never been this quiet. Dozens of car generals stood in a circle around a giant holoscreen. The video played again, and again, and again. A single human walked through smoke. No armor. Weapon. Just fire in his eyes. Then collars falling. Slaves rising. Guards losing control. The footage had gone viral in over 100 million systems. It had been banned, erased, filtered, but it kept coming back. People everywhere were watching it, whispering one word: Joren. The name was never spoken in the video. He hadn't introduced himself. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't begged. He had simply walked in and broken the chains, and now the car were afraid hook. 5 to 7 minutes. Inside the war hall of Overlord Vaskrel, a car general pounded the table. We need to stop this thing, he hissed. This disease? He's not a disease, replied the tall alien beside him. He's an idea. The table went silent. We've crushed rebellions, said another. We've destroyed armies. But we've never seen this before. One human is lighting fires across the galaxy. Entire colonies are standing up. Guards are refusing orders. Even car civilians are asking, what if we're wrong? Overlord Vaskrel stood slowly. His tail swept across the stone floor. Then, we kill the spark, he said. Before the galaxy burns, he turned toward a dark corner of the chamber. A shadow stepped forward. Tall clawed, wearing a cloak of living armor, Commander Saren, the Empire's most ruthless hunter. Find him. Vaskrol growled. Find the human and bury the idea with his corpse. Meanwhile, Joren sat in silence on a small ship called the Emberlight. He stared at the stars, all around him. The crew was working fast. Rebel pilots ran system checks. Engineers patched damage. Medics treated the wounded from the Corin Ring rescue. Joren didn't speak. But everywhere he walked, heads turned. Even aliens bowed their heads in silent respect. Rixa, the rebel pilot, stepped up beside him. They're scared of you, she said quietly. Even out here in space. Wait. Joren finally turned to her. I'm not trying to be a hero, he said. Rixa raised her eyebrows. Good, she said, because you're already a symbol. He didn't answer. She pulled up a screen. Look. Images from across the galaxy appeared. Humans standing on prison worlds. Alien races holding up hand-drawn signs of a man standing. Tall car guards retreating as unarmed crowds advanced. Whole planets declaring independence. You started something, she said. They're not scared of you. They're scared because of you. But just as the moment settled in, alarms blared. Incoming transmission. Rixa ran to the main panel. A face appeared, metal mask, glowing red eyes. The voice was cold and sharp. This is Commander Saren of the Car Execution Fleet. You are harboring a Class 1 fugitive. Release him or be destroyed. Joren stepped forward, saying nothing. The crew looked at him, nervous, but Joren didn't blink. He tapped a button. The screen shut off. The silence spoke, louder than any message. An hour later, the Ember Light dropped out of hyperspace near a shattered moon. It was the old hiding place of the Whisper Cella rebel group that had gone dark months ago. They were trying to locate survivors. Dead, they found a trap. A massive car dreadnought sat in the shadows. They were waiting. As soon as Joren's ship arrived, plasma cannons lit up the sky. Explosions rocked the Ember Light. Shields failing, shouted the engineer. We can't outrun them, yelled the pilot. Joren turned and walked to the weapons hold. What are you doing? Rixa shouted. Joren grabbed a zero-G jetpack and a small bag of explosive charges. I'm going outside. You're insane. That's a dreadnought. He looked at her, calm. They're not afraid of the ship, he said. They're afraid of me. Before anyone could stop him, Joren launched himself into the void. He drifted through space like a ghost. Small, alone, but with purpose. The dreadnought didn't notice him at first. Its focus was on the Ember Light. But as he reached the outer hull, sensors started to beep. Breach detected. One car officer shouted. Too late. Joren landed, planted charges, and vanished again. Seconds later, boom, a fireball ripped across the dreadnought's side. The ship spiraled. Systems failed. Ember Light escaped, but Joren was gone. Lost in the black, the crew searched for hours. No sign, just static. But the next day, across all the rebel networks, a new video appeared. Joren floating in space, saluting. He had survived, the symbol had grown, and in the car war chambers the reports were clear. More uprisings, more riots, systems lost. Resistance forces are gaining weapons. The idea of the standing human is spreading faster than light. Spark had escaped their control. The fire was everywhere, and the Empire had no idea how to stop it. Sirens screamed through the cell blocks. KR guards rushed through narrow corridors, weapons drawn. They had never seen anything like it. Prisoners weren't screaming. They weren't begging. They were standing in silence. Hundreds of them. All facing the same direction, toward one man. A cell door opened slowly. Creaking on broken hinges, Joren stepped out. No armor. No chains. Just blood on his knuckles and a burn on his shoulder from the last battle. On your knees. A guard roared. Joren didn't speak. The guard fired. Joren ducked, moved forward, and knocked the alien to the ground with one brutal strike. He grabbed the plasma rifle and turned to the others. No bullets were fired. The guards froze, not because they were weak, because fear had finally reached even them. Fear of the man who wouldn't fall. Earlier that day, Joren had been captured. During a supply raid, the Empire had moved quickly, teleporting him to Rivenhold within minutes. They didn't want another viral video. No public trial, just isolation, silence, disappearance. But the galaxy was watching. Across human space, people held their breath. Would this be the end of the symbol? Would Joren finally fall? The Resistance tried everything. Hacked drones, spy networks, pirate informants, and still nothing. Rixa stared at a broken screen in their hidden base. No signal, she whispered. They've buried him. Then we dig him out, Tarn said. We have his coordinates. We go in. Rixa shook her head. That's suicide. But before they could decide, something unexpected happened. A message arrived from inside the prison. It was a single image. Joren standing in a dark hallway, surrounded by stunned guards, unarmed, alive, inside Rivenhold. The air had changed. The prisoners followed Joren through the cell blocks. He didn't order them. He didn't shout. He simply walked forward, and they followed. The guards tried to stop them, but something was wrong. Their weapons jammed. Their drones glitched. Their AI security doors refused to close. Someone was helping. A voice came through the prisons. Comes. You don't know me, it said, but I've been watching you, and I'm tired of silence. It was an AIA forgotten system once used by the car to monitor prisoners. But Joren's footage had reached even its core code. I've unlocked the control room, the AI said. You have 8 minutes before reinforcements arrive. Joren nodded once and moved fast. The prisoners rushed behind him, storming into the control chamber. He reached the command panel and pressed one button. Across the galaxy, on every pirate channel, black market network, and underground frequency, the feed went live. Billions watched. Joren stood alone in the prison, surrounded by freed prisoners. Behind him, the car flag burned. He raised his hand. Not in a fist, not in a wave, just a simple, open palm. The universal sign for stand. Then the feed cut out, but the message was sent. Far above Rivenhold, the car warship Fangs of Vaskral approached. It carried elite soldiers, the Empire's best. Orders are clear, barked the commander. If the prison resists, reduce it to ash. But as the warship locked onto the asteroid, something exploded from inside. A stolen dropship burst from the crater at the controls. RXA, and in the back Joren and hundreds of prisoners. We got you, she said with a smile. Told you we'd come. The ship jumped into hyperspace. Seconds before the car cannons fired, the prison asteroid was gone. But the man they feared? He had escaped again, later in a hidden base inside a frozen asteroid field. The freed prisoners gathered around a campfire. They didn't sing. They didn't cheer. They sat in silence, listening to the stars hum in the distance. Joren stood alone, near the edge of the cliff, staring out. You keep standing, Rixa said quietly, stepping beside him. Even when they try to break you, he didn't answer. They called you a spark, she said. But that's wrong, he turned to her. You're not a spark, she said. You're the star they can't put out. From deep space, the message was clear. The Empire had tried to bury him, but Joren had risen again. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a fire the galaxy could see. And no matter how dark, the sky became this star would not fall. The Car Empire had ruled the stars for nearly 400 years. They believed their power could never be broken. But now, their outer colonies were burning. Slave planets were rising. Loyal governors were defecting. Whole fleets were falling apart from within. And in the center of this chaos, one name was whispered like thunder: Joren. Hook first 5 to 7 minutes. Inside the Hall of Kings on the Car homeworld Trazic, the High King slammed his clawed fist against the crystal throne. A massive hologram lit up the ceiling news feeds. Rebel footage, broken war reports, and at the center, the image of a single human standing tall in the firelight. He's just a man, the king roared. How does one human break an empire? A nervous general spoke softly. It's not him. It's what he represents. They don't see a slave anymore. They see a spark. The king's tail snapped in fury. Then we burned that belief. He turned to his top commander. Activate Ashfall Protocol. The room froze. But your majesty, the general stammered. That would mean do it, the king shouted. Erase their home. Let Earth burn. Let them see what happens when they dare to stand. Far away, in a cold corner of space, Joren sat beside a window on a resistant ship. He didn't speak, but his face was hard. Focused, Rixa entered the room holding a datapad. You need to see this. She tapped the screen. A warning flashed in red. ASHFALL protocol confirmed. Target, Earth. The human homeworld, broken, occupied. Used as a car museum for centuries, was about to be destroyed. Tarn, ship's engineer, rushed in. They're going to do it. They've already moved the fleet. It'll be over in days unless we stop them. Joren stood, slowly. No fear. No panic, just purpose. We're going to Earth, Rixa said. Right, he nodded once. But deep down, they knew it wouldn't be a rescue mission. It would be a war. The human resistance had never been to. Earth, it was too dangerous, too guarded. But now, they had no choice. As the Emberlight and a small fleet of rebel ships approached Earth's orbit, they sought the massive Dread Sun fleet, glowing with fire energy, aimed at the planet's surface. At the center of it all, Vaskral's hammer, a battle station the size of a moon, inside. The car commanders laughed. They'll kneel before we fire, one said. They'll always do. But then, something happened. Earth's surface lit up. Not from the enemy. From the ground itself. Old. Defense grid sentient Earth technology began to glow. Long-buried rail cannons lifted from the soil. Forgotten satellite arrays blinked too. Life. For the first time in 100 years, Earth woke up. The car panicked. Who reactivated the defense systems? On the Emberlight, Joren stood at the center console. His hand rested on a stolen control module, patched together by Tarn, connected to Earth's forgotten systems. He had turned Earth back on. But that was just the beginning. Let's target their flagship, Rixa said. Joren didn't speak, he just hit. The command key in Earth answered. Massive railguns fired upward. Lasers cut across the sky. Rebel ships joined the assault. The battle had begun, and it was no longer about freedom. It was about survival. On the surface of Earth, enslaved humans looked up and saw something they'd never thought possible. Car ships fleeing, explosions. Above, smoke, light, fire, and then through the clouds. A rebel transport landed in the ruins of old New York. The doors opened. Joren stepped out. He looked at the land of his ancestors, scorched, cracked, poisoned, but still standing like him. Car patrol unit rushed to stop him. Too late. Rebels swarmed behind him. Locals grabbed old weapons. The city rose. No one gave the order. They didn't need one. They had their symbol. Joren wasn't just a spark anymore. He was a storm, and above Earth. As the rebel fleet pushed the enemy back, Vaskral's hammer began to fall. The crown of the car empire shining in the black dash cracked, and then it shattered. Later, silence fell over the battlefield. A lone transmission was sent across all resistance networks. It showed Earth live, defended free. In one line of text, the broken crown has fallen. Humanity stands again. The message reached every corner of the galaxy, and for the first time in centuries, the car empire realized something they had feared since the day they enslaved the first. Human. They weren't the rulers anymore. They were the hunted, and the man who had started it all. He was now walking on the soil of Earth, looking up at a sky no longer owned by his enemy. The once mighty car empire was now shaking. Their war fleets were in retreat. Their colonies were burning, their slaves were rising, but they still had one last weapon, one last order, one final chance to destroy the idea of human rebellion forever. It was called Protocol Oblivion, a secret project hidden deep in the core of the Empire, and it had only one purpose: wipe out the human race from the stars. Hook first 5 to 7 minutes. The cold void near the star Veltrion, a massive car command ship, floated in darkness. Inside, Lord Vascral stood before a circle of terrified generals. "The rebels have reached Earth," he growled. "They've broken the chains. They've crushed our fleet." He turned slowly. "But if they think that makes them free, let me show them what fear truly means." He activated a black panel. The lights dimmed. A voice came from the shadows, deep, artificial, cold. "Protocol. Oblivion. Initiated." A hidden car weapon, ancient and banned even by their own laws, was being activated again. Its target. Every human DNA signature in the galaxy. Once launched, it would infect stars, atmospheres, even water supplies, slow, silent, unstoppable. Back on Earth, the fires of battle still glowed in the distance. The rebels had won the surface, but they were far from safe. Joren walked through the ruins of old cities. With every step, he saw the cost of the car's rule. Burned homes, empty graves, crushed statues, and yet, people were standing again. Rixa ran toward him with panic in her voice. "We intercepted a code," she said. "They're calling it Oblivion. It's real. A biological wave. Not just war. Extinction." Tarn brought up a map. "It's moving through the outer systems already. Colonies are dying without a fight. And it's spreading fast." Joren looked at the data, silent. Then he pointed to the center of the map. "Car Prime," Rixa whispered. "You want to go straight into their homeworld?" He nodded once. "Then we need help," she said. Joren opened a channel, an old one, hidden in the ancient rebel codes. The screen blinked. A face appeared. Not human, an alien leader. One of the enslaved races who had suffered under the car. He stared at Joren. "You are the one they call the Standing Man," the alien said. Joren simply nodded. The alien bared his teeth. "We're ready." Across the stars, the message went out, and ships began to move. Not just humans, but hundreds of species who had waited for this moment to rise, to fight, to end it all. Hours later, a fleet of rebel ships appeared just outside. The car system, they were outnumbered 10-1. But they didn't stop. Joren stood on the bridge of the Emberlight, staring at the massive storm ahead. Car Prime. A fortress world wrapped in rings of fire and death. The weapon was ready. Protocol. Oblivion would be launched in minutes, unless they stopped it. The final battle had begun. Inside the car citadel, Vascral watched the rebel fleet approach. He didn't flinch. He placed his hand on the final activation key. Let the stars be their grave. But before he could press it, the roof exploded. A dropship crashed through the tower. Smoke filled the chamber, and from the fire stepped alone, unarmed. Just standing, Vascral stared in disbelief. "You," he growled. "You caused all this." Didn't speak. He walked forward. Vascral screamed in rage and lunged at him. They fought brutal. Hand-to-hand blades, claws. Blood, but Joren didn't back down. He had no armor. No army, just the strength of every planet that had stood with him. And, in the end, he won. With the last of his strength, Joren smashed the control system. The Oblivion. Protocol died. The room went dark, but the galaxy lit up. Messages flooded every channel. The weapon is down. Joren stopped it. The last order of the car is broken. From world to world, humans looked up and whispered one word: free. The Empire had tried to erase them. But in the ashes of obedience, a new fire had risen. One they could never burn away. Later, Joren stood on the balcony of the fallen citadel. Behind him, rebel ships hovered below him. The capital burned. Rixa stepped beside him, shaking her head in disbelief. "You didn't just fight them," she said. "You ended them." Joren looked at the stars, and for the first time he allowed himself one quiet breath. Not victory, but hope. Across the galaxy, systems once ruled by fear were now lighting up with something else: freedom. The car. Empire's grip was breaking. Their fleets were scattered. Their leaders were gone, and on their throne world, last flag of their power, was falling, but deep in the shadows. One final piece of their rule remained a secret order. Hidden inside the Empire's bones, it was called the Pale Circle. They did not command ships, they did not wear armor, they wrote the laws. They decided who lived and who vanished. And now they wanted Joren dead. Hook first 5 to 7 minutes. Inside the ruins of the car capital tower, Joren walked alone. Dust fell from broken ceilings. Fires still burned along cracked walls. He had destroyed the weapon, had stopped oblivion. But the war wasn't over. Tarn ran up behind him, holding a datapad. "Joren," he said, breathless, "we found something." He turned the screen around. A live broadcast appeared, coming from a dark room deep under the surface. Dozens of tall car. A figure sat in a perfect circle, pale-skinned, cold eyes. One of them spoke. "This rebellion ends today. Fleets, we do not need weapons. We have the code." In front of them, a human child was brought forward, collared, shaking. "This is the message," another one said. The screen went black. The room around Joren fell silent. Rixa cursed under her breath. The Pale Circle. "We thought they were a myth." Tarn nodded slowly. "They run everything behind the scenes. Politics, mind control tech, even traitor networks inside the rebellion. They've taken hostages," Rixa said. "Dozens, maybe more. They're planning a public purge, a final show of power." Joren didn't speak. He grabbed his gear and turned toward the black tunnels under the city. Tarn stepped in front of him. "That's suicide, Joren. That part of the capital is sealed. No maps, no lights, no exits." Joren just stared at him. Rixa sighed and loaded her weapon. "Well," she said, "I guess we're going with him." The tunnels below the capital were silent. Too silent. The deeper they went, the colder it got. The air was heavy. The walls were covered in markings old car language, mixed with human blood. They reached a steel door with no lock, just a scanner. Joren stepped forward. The scanner blinked. Human DNA confirmed. The door opened. "Why would they build a scanner?" "For humans," Rixa whispered. Tarn's voice dropped. "'Cause they used human minds to power their decision systems. We weren't just slaves. We were components." Inside, they found it. The crown of obedience a living machine built from. Minds, memories, and agony. At the center sat the Pale Circle. They looked up as Joren entered. "You made a mistake coming here," one of them said. "We don't rule by fear, we rule by truth, and your truth ends tonight." Joren didn't answer. The child hostage looked up at him, eyes full of tears. And in that moment, something deep inside Joren, older than war, older than rage, came alive. He raised his arm and fired. The wall exploded. Behind it, resistance forces charged in hundreds strong. The Pale Circle. She tried to escape, but their guards were outnumbered. Their machines were burning. And Joren walked straight into the center of the circle. One by one he faced them. They begged, they pleaded, and then they knelt. Not by order, by fear, by truth. Because they finally understood what he was. The end of their reign, outside. The rebellion sent a single message to every star. The Pale Circle has fallen. The last throne is dust. The galaxy belongs to the free. Billions watched as the symbol of car rule was melted into slag and above the capital. For the first time in centuries, the car people saw something new rise over their Sci's flag. Of unity, no chains, no crown, just stars, and one man standing alone on the edge of the citadel, watching the last empire crumble. Joren didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The galaxy already knew. The age of silence was over. There was no more throne, no more empire, no more kneeling. The car had ruled the stars for centuries. But now their laws were ash, their ships were ruins, and their name brought only shame in every system. On every planet, across every sky, freedom echoed like thunder. And it all began with one human, who stood. But now the galaxy asked a new question. What comes next? Hook first 5 to 7 minutes, in the burned-out halls of the car capital. Joren stood before a crowd of millions. The streets were full. The skies above were filled with rebel ships. Banners of new unity waving in solar winds. Aliens, humans, children, survivors, all standing watching him. He didn't climb a stage. He didn't wear a crown. He didn't hold a weapon. He just walked to the center of the plaza, stopped. Cameras hovered silently. Every world was watching. Rixa whispered into her come. He's not going to speak, is he? Tarn answered. He doesn't need to. And then Joren raised his hand. Open palm, no command, no war cry, just a signal. Stand. The entire plaza slowly rose in silence. Billions across the galaxy stood with them. The new age had begun later. Inside the old throne chamber, now stripped of golden banners, Joren sat across from leaders of every species, former slaves, former rebels, even former enemies. We are free, one leader said. But how do we stay free? Long silence followed. The galaxy had been held by fear for so long. No one remembered what freedom actually looked like. One alien general, his voice gravelly from decades in chains, leaned forward. We stood together to destroy an empire, he said. Let's now stand together to build a future. Heads nodded. No governments, no rulers, just one new law. No being shall kneel to another, ever again, across the galaxy. Massive statues were pulled down. Slave collars were melted into monuments. Empty prisons became schools. Old warships became transports for healing. Rebuilding, exploring, and a new fleet was formed, not for war, but for defense. It flew under a single symbol, a lone figure standing beneath stars. The standing fleet built to protect the free, led not by a king, not by a general, but by a voice. The galaxy trusted Jore, and months later, a strange ship appeared near Earth. It carried no weapons. No, its markings, just a flag of peace. The crew inside were not human, but they came with a message. We saw your signal, they said. The one who stood, we were watching from far beyond the edge of your war. They showed their scars different from the cars, but still marks of chains, silence, and fear. Joren met them, didn't shake hands, didn't give orders. He just stood before them and opened his palm. The message was clear. You are not alone. You never were. And now, you are free to stand back on Earth. As the sun set behind the old ruins of a shattered city, Joren walked through a quiet field of wildflowers, growing in a broken crater. Children ran through the grass. Laughter filled the air. Rixa walked up beside him and handed him a datapad. It showed reports from all across space, colonies uniting without conquest, former car citizens helping rebuild, ancient enemies working together. This isn't peace, she said. Joren looked at her. Confused, she smiled. This is the age of standing. He looked up at the stars. They no longer belong to empires. They belong to the brave, to the broken, to the free, to those who refuse to kneel, and the fire that once burned across the galaxy. It wasn't destruction anymore. It was light, a new dawn, forever.